A black superhero loses his faith in humanity. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Short Story Tuesday, so I wanted to focus on a short story that has caught my attention. It is also the last week, as I'm saying this, of Black History Month, so I wanted to talk about another short story from a black author. And so today's short story is all about a superhero. I am referring to Superhuman by Nicola Yoon, which was published in 2018 in the short story collection Fresh Ink. For those who don't know, Nicola Yoon is a Jamaican-American writer, a black individual, although you could argue that she's more Caribbean than she is necessarily like Black American, but at that point I'm starting to get into classifications, and I don't feel comfortable doing that, so we're just going to say Black American writer. She has been writing for the past 10 or so years, at least getting her work published. She's written a couple of short story collections as well as books, including Everything and The Sun is Also a Star, which I've heard good things about. I've been meaning to check those out for a while, but have not gotten to them, so I think this might be the thing that pushes me to finally go out and seek those, probably within the next year. She's involved in a number of organizations that are meant to get diverse authors or diverse writers published, which is pretty good. We definitely need more of that. And that's pretty much all I know about Nicola. Hopefully I can learn more about her, find more of her work in the future. But without further ado, let's talk about Superhuman. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we'll move on from there. So Superhuman focuses on Syrita. She is a wealthy black teenager living in Los Angeles. She comes from a pretty good background, and her mother is very protective of her and tries to discourage her from going to less safe neighborhoods, which Syrita notes aren't less safe. And she specifically tells her mother it's not a crime to be poor, although I would argue that in America it is slowly becoming more of a crime to be poor. But at the beginning of the story, we find that she has been tasked with saving humanity because a superhero by the name of X has released a statement saying that he no longer has faith in humanity and wants to see it destroyed, and he's ordered the world leaders to send somebody to convince him otherwise. And we see in a flashback that Syrita was saved by X in his superhero debut. He rescued her from getting hit by a car and then stopped the car before it could before the people in it could do more harm to the people around them. But as time has gone on, X has become disillusioned, which might have something to do with the fact that humanity seems to be obsessed with his race. Particularly Americans are obsessed with his race because he's in America. The people can only see, he's wearing very tight clothing and whatnot. You can't see a lot of his skin except around his eyes, which people say must make him black. But people also seem to think that he might be an alien. And the rest of the world is like, why are you guys so obsessed with race? Stop focusing on that and focus on the fact that we have a savior, a superhero to help us to guide through the trouble and whatnot. But yeah, X is at this point saying that he wants to destroy humanity, and the government, because X saved Syrita first, the government chooses to have Syrita save humanity. And X sends her to an address in a less well-off part of Los Angeles, which surprises Syrita. But when she gets there, she gets to his sort of cave hideout, secret lair or something like that. And Syrita, talks with X. He tries to take off his mask, but she's initially like, no, if you do that, then she's thinking like that means that he's fully chosen not to save humanity anymore. And Syrita at this point tries to convince X that there must be some reason why humanity is worth saving. Like, surely he wouldn't have begun saving humanity doing superhero work if he didn't believe in the actual cause. And Syrita comes to realize through X's, sort of downtrodden discussion with her that something must have happened to him. And X reveals that he was shot by the police. He's normally getting shot at, but while he was out of his costume, the police must have mistook him for someone else, and they proceeded to shoot him, as they do so many other black teenagers and black men and black women in America. And Sarita's like, well, why does it matter to you? You're an alien, and that means that none of these bullets actually affect you. To which at this point X finally takes off his mask and reveals that he was a human this entire time. That his origin is that his uncle and his father were both shot by the police, or I think his brother was shot. I don't think it matters. Two people close to him were shot by the police, and his mother made a wish which resulted in him becoming this superhero, which is a very interesting origin story. Would love to see another story about all of that taking place, but for now, we're just left with this short story. But X tells all of this to Syrita, and Syrita understands that there's nothing she can really say at this point to convince X otherwise. Like, Syrita has no answers, and she realizes that X has a choice about whether or not he wants to continue, and so her way of trying to force X into deciding is to just fall off the building that they were on, because he flew there. So the story ends with the question of whether or not X is going to try to continue to save humanity at this point, and that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a little bit we're talking about with Superhuman, a very interesting short story. Definitely one that is weird, definitely within the category of what I talk about. A lot of what I've been talking about for Black History Month has been very normal stories, I would say. So this one is definitely out there, but still, talking about a lot of the same stuff that the other stories have talked about. One of the themes that Yoon is touching upon here, probably the main theme of the story, is race in America. We see that a black superhero has found, racial obstacles in his debut. There's the media obsession with his race. Even though they can only see one part of his skin, they begin asking the question, is this a black superhero? And they proceed to call him the Black Superman, which is kind of offensive when you think about it. They're like, oh, you're the black version of this, and he has to send a letter to the Los Angeles Times and say, actually, my name is X. This is my name now. And the media is just so obsessed with this that media organizations outside of the country are just like, why is America obsessed so much with race? You should be focused on other things, like, one, that humans can have elevated powers, or that there's life outside of the universe, or that you have a superhero here who can save things and help us ease our problems, and all you're focused on is the race of this being. So you can either make points for yourself or make claims against it or whatnot. None of you are focused at the real situation at hand. I think that's also why people want to claim the X to be an alien, because they don't want black individuals to be made to feel like they can be superior in any sort of way. That it's in their best interest to continue doing racism. But how do you do racism now that there's a superhero on the scene? You would think that the superhero could step in and change a few things, but maybe you're not thinking that far ahead. And that's not the focus of Yoon's story. Although again, that would be another interesting direction that she could take this, or that someone could elaborate upon this. And there are more elements of race in this story, including the origins of the superhero. X's uncle and father or brother were shot and his mother made a wish that basically gave him this ability. So the black community, looking for a savior, finds themselves a potential savior. And that's also X's current frustration, because he was shot by a police officer. Even though he's doing a lot to benefit humanity, he was just shot. Like, the police just viewed him as a you could disregard him. They viewed him as expendable. Like, their lack of actual implicit bias training affected affected their interaction with the X in his human alter ego disguise, and they chose to shoot him. And so, if the police are still doing that, it doesn't matter if there's actually an X there. Is it possible for X to actually make a difference in humanity? I think is what the ultimate question is in this story, which Yoon doesn't seek to answer. I think she leaves it up to us to kind of decide. And indeed, I do think this depiction of superheroes, especially this type of superhero, is interesting in our current climate of increased racial tension in America due to people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all sorts of people kind of exacerbating those racial tensions. And then you see, police violence in America continuing to be a problem. And so you place a superhero in that setting, it creates a sort of interesting sort of discussion to have about superheroes and, whether humanity is really worth saving. I don't think Yoon is necessarily the first person to talk about superheroes in this capacity. This was around the time that the Black Panther movie was released, and Black Panther had existed in comics in years past. So not necessarily the first, but you're contributing to the discussion, and you're making a sort of interesting narrative around these ideas here. And as I had just mentioned, this brings up the question of whether humanity is worth saving. If racism and violence is so entrenched in society that even people who are claiming or people who are shown to have been a benefit to society, and not to say that people who are shot by the police aren't a benefit to society, but even people who are definably good, like very apparently saving humanity from destruction, like if these people are being shot at, if violence and racism is so entrenched, is humanity worth protecting? And I don't think Yoon fully answers that question. She's leaving it up to us by presenting us with the facts that are on the table. I think Syrita doesn't really have an answer either in this story, because she initially tries to defend humanity, but then, as X talks more about the racism and the violence that he's been experiencing, Syrita's like, well, there are these answers, but am I just trying to make exceptions for humanity? Am I just trying to justify what's going on? Or is this actually the proven reality of what humanity is like, and that you can't fix this? That this is a entrenched systemic problem that can only be fixed by completely wiping out humanity and hoping that the next incarnation of it manages to fix these beta problems or something like that. Syrita doesn't have that answer, but as she goes along, she realizes that no answer that she can provide will really make X happy, or it'll really sort of help humanity sort of move along in a more positive direction. Allow me to read you an interesting quote from this. She knows none of the excuses are true. She knows it in her heart. And where is there to go from here? If she can't convince him the shooting was justified, then his anger is justified. And if his anger is justified, then how can she stop what he wants to do? How can she tell him not to reject a world that has always rejected him? How can she tell him not to destroy the human race? And that's a good series of questions pointing out that, if you're if you can't justify all of this, then surely his justifications are righteous. And in doing so, ultimately he's right in wanting to destroy the human race. I think a parallel to this is rioting, especially after the George Floyd murder at the hands of the police. How do you tell the Black community not to riot or cause violence to businesses and whatnot in their community that have so often done racism and prejudice against them, to the how do you tell them not to be angry at the police, because they're like, you can't make any justification for why the police are treating them so poorly. So if you can't do that, then their anger is righteous. So the same thing seems to be happening to X in this story. And I think what Yoon might be trying to say is maybe there is no answer here. Maybe it's up to the individual, maybe it's up to the Black community to decide what they want to do in this situation, whether they want to like completely destroy their community, completely destroy the police or something like that. That's up to them. That's not really up to us white individuals or the rest of the world, because we can't tell those people how to feel about being killed and harmed in their communities. And the same thing is really happening to X here. I think Syrita and both Yoon are arguing that X should still try, and that's what you see at the end of the story. Syrita realizes there's nothing she can say, so it's up to how X feels, and so she responds by falling off the building, and which is a really interesting way to end it, because if X feels that humanity is worth saving, he'll go and rescue Syrita, whereas if he doesn't feel that humanity is worth saving, Syrita will die, but she was going to die regardless. So it doesn't really feel like there's a loss here. Ultimately, she's giving X the chance to prove, to feel, to find his own answer in that way. The last thing worth noting is that Syrita's justifications in this story for why X might have been experiencing violence by the police kind of mirror our own, especially by the white community, where Syrita's like, well, surely the police would never target you just because you're Black. There must have been something else at play. But that's something that, conservatives and especially many people in the white community, I've been one of those people in the past, unfortunately, who say, like, it's not, the police aren't violent, like, there must have been something that happened in this situation, rather than simply being the case that the police are trained to enact violence on Black communities because they believe that Black individuals are inherently hostile towards them. And Syrita tries to make those justifications in this story, but again, it's all about mirroring our own, justifications and our own realizations, especially after the George Floyd protest, which I like to believe have sort of stuck, but I do feel and fear that some of those justifications kind of are coming back around again, and it's something that maybe we forget until it happens again, and we try to ignore it. As Syrita says, like, it's not that she doesn't want to focus on it, it's just that it's harder for her to sort of hear about these people and see this continued violence over and over and over, and the people in power don't seem to be doing anything about it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Superhuman by Nicola Yoon, a very good short story. As I mentioned before, it doesn't exactly seem like it's the most original. I do feel like this short story has kind of been done before by other people, but especially in various forms of media, but it's still pretty good. The narrative is still really good, and the themes are stuff that is worth talking about, especially as police violence and gender or racial violence continues in America. So definitely a worthy entry to Black History Month. I will put a link to it in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and have a discussion about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about Superhuman or this author, Nicola Yoon, if they don't already know. Otherwise, don't forget to join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about such things. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and super-powered travels. Farewell.